Oh, no, you're not. You're going to show.
Good evening. We'd like to welcome you to our July 13th school board meeting. We'll begin by calling this meeting to order, and Amy Tregaskis will offer the Pledge of Allegiance, and Darrell Perkins will offer the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are thankful to meet tonight in the capacity of a school board. We are grateful for this opportunity we have to serve our teachers and students and community, and we pray as we make decisions that we will keep thy will in mind. We are grateful for those who make sacrifices to keep our freedoms. Pray that thou bless those who are defending our country this day. We are grateful for our teachers and our students, and please bless them as we prepare for the beginning of our new school year, that they will come ready to teach and to learn and to participate. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you both very much. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second the motion.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. 1.2, superintendent reports to include comments on extracurricular activities, curriculum, and current events.
You would think that with school being out, there's not very much going on, but there are a ton of things going on. As you're probably familiar, like in the past, we have students on campus right now. We have about 600 football campers on campus. We have soccer going on campus, and baseball and softball. We had things going on during the summer on campus. We have things it's a hopping place, and it's really exciting to see the kids involved in doing things. Just wanted to make the board aware that we have the AZ Merit scores are in our possession, but we haven't been able to release those. Then as soon as we have those, the ability to release those, we'll present the data and results to you as the board and the public when we're able to do so. So just wanted to give you that information, and also let you know that all the evaluations of all the staff, teachers, and everyone has been completed, and they're on file at the district office. So things are going really well. We're in preparation for the new year. Our new teachers report on the 26th of this month for new teacher orientation. Our new teacher induction program will go the 26th, 27th, and 28th, and then carry over when they're connected with their mentors on the 1st of August. All teachers return on the 2nd, the 1st and the 2nd, and then students return on the 3rd. And summers are fly by, and we're excited to have everyone back on campus and look forward to a great school year. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Item 1.3, schedule a date for a board retreat.
Annually, I like to have a board retreat where we can go and set goals and kind of share our vision and make sure we have that in line in for the new school year. And I like to do that within a short time frame of the school year starting. So I would recommend that we have our board retreat on August 17th. And we can meet later that evening starting at about 5 o'clock. And if you can anticipate going till about 9, that would be great. So that's my recommendation.
Do we need to make a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we schedule our board retreat on August 17th, 2017 at 5 p.m.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. 1.4, call to the audience. Looks like we have one person. Ms. Singleton?
Good evening. I'm Laura Singleton with the Independent newspaper, and I hope to be covering some of the meetings and want you to know that you can always reach out to us if you haven't before or if you don't know my name. So I'm at the Independent at the 537-5721. But what I wanted to let you know, if you didn't already know this, is the Public Information Officer for Diane Douglas, the Superintendent of Public Instruction, reached out to me yesterday. She will be here in town doing her, I believe she calls it the We Are Listening Tour. So she will be here next Tuesday and Wednesday in an open forum. We will have that in Friday's paper, but she'll be here in White River at the District Board office from 6 to 8 p.m. and in the Holbrook office on Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. So if you want to share that information, and by the same token, if you have any issues or questions that you feel are good for me to pursue, look into, ask, I do have an opportunity to meet with her prior to the meeting. So just information.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. 1.5, future board agenda items. Does anybody have any future board agenda items they'd like to ask for?
No, I don't.
None at this time?
Thank you.
I'm not gonna read all of those.
2.1, approval of overnight out-of-state travel. Mr. Housley.
There's several items on our list here under 2.1, ranging from soccer to football and volleyball, all of which are the seasons that are coming up in the fall. That is in the board agenda for anyone to view if they would like, but for tonight's purposes, with it being pretty lengthy, I would recommend that these trips be approved as outlined in your board book. And
I will make a nomination that these are approved as written.
I second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
2.2, approval of 2017-18 junior high student family handbook.
there are some things in the handbook there that will be changes, including the adjusted fee schedule. To point out there, we did adjust some fees from last year, and this would indicate it for this year. Updated description of the daily schedule as we went through that at the year. Some clarification of pickup and sign-out procedures, just some things like that that are in the book that you'll notice. Updated bell schedules for the year and some changes to the dress code in wording so that those things are a little more clear. So I would recommend the approval of the 17-18 junior high student family and handbook as presented.
I make a motion of the approval of the 2017-18 junior high handbook as presented.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. 2.3, approval of 17-18 junior high staff handbook.
Similar to a student handbook, there are some things just to help staff navigate through the daily activities at the school. Some clarifications on the request of leave. There's some other things that talk about staff social contracts and norms developed with the staff, including some clarifications on PLC meetings and how those will be conducted. And some just ways to govern some of the policies in their own classroom, from late work acceptance and things like that. So I would recommend the approval of the 17-18 junior high school staff handbook as presented.
Make a motion for approval of the 17-18 junior high staff handbook.
I second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do have one question, and I know that she is not here, but clarification on the 5 days in advance leave policy. Is there exceptions for emergency leave in that new policy?
Well, this isn't new policy. This is in accordance to our policy that in the district, and as with any of the policies, principals use discretion to enforce the policy. If there's extenuating circumstances or emergencies, then obviously those are things that would be taken into account.
It does say if less than 5 days, just communicate with the principal,
Yeah.
right? That's
And
how
that's
they do the
standard
exceptions.
standard procedure. I think this was just to clarify, give more clarification to the policy as it is in our.
Any further discussion?
Well, I liked that it had include 3 grades per week in the grade book. And that was something that I liked as a parent.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. 2.4, approval of 2017-2018 high school student handbook. Mr. Housley.
Mr. President, I would invite Mr. Adams to come up and just do some points of clarification in the changes and then take any questions you might have from him.
Good evening, members of the board. It's good to be here on a nice summery evening. Isn't this great weather? Just a couple of things to point out to you. Most of the policies and procedures for our students are staying the same, but I want you to be aware that a student who passes the AZ merit with proficient or highly proficient, a proficient student will receive a grade bump to their grade. They can choose the semester they want that grade bump. That's an incentive for kids to do well on the exam. If a student is highly proficient, they can have 2 grade bumps. That's so if they're in Algebra 2, they're taking the Algebra 2 test, that applies to Algebra 2. If they're in English 11, applies to English 11. So another couple of little points
Does
like
that
that.
work if they get an A?
Yeah, that's the problem, the incentives there. So we did put that in. That's also new this year, that at the end of first quarter, there will be a day of activity for those students who have an A and who have an A in the class, or they were highly proficient. The policy reads the way we wrote it, is if they're highly proficient, they will have that activity day at the end of first quarter. We as department leaders and the high school community, teachers and administrators, worked long and hard to come up with a great idea, and that's may not sound that great, but it was a good idea, and we said, okay, that's where we're going to rest. But that's the incentive for them. And that's the problem with the AZ merit. It doesn't offer a lot of positive incentives for those kids that are at the top. And we want to have incentives for our kids to do well in those exams other than just take the test. Yeah. So those grade bumps and the positive incentive day, hopefully that'll give our kids some desire to want to do their best, because those are the kids that are going to score the highest for our school and for our community, are those straight A kids. We want them to perform well. That's kind of what we're doing there. Another thing I want you to be aware of, and we started this last year, we put it in handbook this year. We bought a little flashlight for our Safe Schools program. And this flashlight has a little device in it where you just say, "Hi, I'm Farrell Adams," and it reads my breath and tells me if I have alcohol in my breath. So at every dance that we have, before you walk in the dance, you have to say, "Hi, I am so-and-so," and it tells us if that student is under the influence of alcohol as they enter our activities. And we're going to be using that regularly, and that's in our student handbook, just to keep you up to date on that. We're also going into beyond textbooks and a lot of regular formative or short assessments. We call them formative assessments. And students who do poorly on those assessments will have to attend a reteach. And the point I want to make here, and I want the community to hear this, is the reteach or the mandatory tutoring at Shola High School, which used to be at lunchtime, The day is now designed for that to run from 7:25 in the morning to 7:55 every morning. If you are assigned a mandatory reteach, they are to be there, and there will be consequences if they don't. Meetings with parents and other things. If you have a mandatory tutoring, that's still the same time. It'll be a little different. So a couple of things on that, just to keep you apprised, so you know what's happening when people say, what's this, when does my child receive tutoring at the high school? Mainly in the morning. There's also lunchtime available also, so, and by appointment with teachers. One last point I want to make is, we've always had a real strong policy at Shoal High School against bullying and harassment. We've just taken our procedures and made those a little more formal this year. Those grievance forms, if you were being bullied or harassed, you can pick up that form in a teacher's classroom, a teacher's office, and then those can be filled out and discreetly handed back in an office, or to the SRO, or to an administrator, to a teacher, to the parent. The parent can bring them in. We debated a drop box, kind of opted against that, thought there's other ways. We have a lot of avenues. But we want the forms and the policies out there. We have a trifold bullying policy that's distributed. We want our students to feel like if they're being bullied or harassed, that there's a way for them to receive immediate help. And we take each one of those forms that are filled out seriously and interview and investigate those, each one thoroughly, until we've resolved the issue one way or the other. So just a couple of things for you to be aware of in the student handbook. There's a lot of it's the same, but those are just a couple of highlights about what's new this year in the Shoal High School student handbook. Thank you. Any questions?
Can you explain the dress code change?
Dress code's real easy. We in the triangle of face, there can be a piercing if it's 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch or less. No loops or rings. And the dress code is, if the camera's on me, it's here, down, appropriately, shoulder tip and mid-thigh. That's it.
What holy jeans?
Mid-thigh.
Mid-thigh?
If they're above mid-thigh, you're going to be dress coded.
And are leggings allowed?
Leggings are allowed. Mid-thigh. It's real simple. Mid-thigh, shoulders. If it's covered to mid-thigh, shoulders, a neck is the thing, but we understand when we say the neck, you can have a V cutter. But we don't want something going down the back or down the front. Has to be appropriate. I guess our philosophy is this. If a kid wants to wear leggings and that's what they're going to come to school and achieve their best in leggings, and they don't have holes in them and they look appropriate, please come to our school and learn. Our objective is to learn. If you have holes in your jeans and you paid $900 for those jeans, of course they cost a little expensive.
they're expensive.
And there's a few holes down below the knee. Mid-thigh. Is it covered mid-thigh? If there's holes above mid-thigh, you're going to have a problem at Shoal High School. That's a very good question. But it's real simple. Shoulders, here, mid-thigh. Covered. You want to wear your pajamas? Wear your pajamas. Make sure they're appropriate and that they look fine. We need you there at school to learn. Our objective is to learn. If you aren't learning, you're going to be in that reteach in the mornings, and it's not going to be pleasant. If you fail your benchmark test, your time is going to be given up. What I mean by that, you will give up
It'll be
personal
pleasant
time.
because you'll be learning.
That's right. We have got to. I just need. I
But you'll
can't
be getting up
express-
early to do it.
can't express too much the fact that, of course, I care what my teachers teach.
Right.
But you know what I care about more than teaching is learning. I'll watch the teaching and the strategies in which they teach, but students have got to learn. We've got to focus on learning. And the other part of this that's in the handbook, there's a big push on attendance this year. If you're on a medical note and you bring your medical note, we'll take it. We want you to be out of audit problem. But if you don't bring it in and it's 20, goes past, that might just be an excused absence. You may not get that medical note approval. We're gonna hold that to the line this year. Our parents need to understand we're gonna be consistent with your child and my child, so that everybody's held to that. Mrs. Fagodia, our attendance secretary, has already been trained on that procedure. So when you come into school, if you have a medical note, and then you come, and it happened in February, and then all of a sudden you're an audit problem in May, and you say, well, I was gone to the doctor in February. Well, I'm sorry, it's too late. We have got to take attendance in our high school seriously. Students have to realize, parents have to realize, that when we have kids miss 20 days in a full year or 10 to 15 days in a semester, that's unacceptable. Mm-hmm. We cannot learn. Remember, our key word here is we've got to learn. Students must learn. We have some rigorous tasks ahead of us in Algebra 1, Geometry, and English 11, and 10, and 9, and in our science classes, and social studies, and CT, and our fine arts. And we have to be there to learn that. And that's why these handbooks are in place. We will train our community. We've got a training approach that we want to train. We'll have open houses where we'll invite parents to come in and be trained on these. Even the new Power School, how do you find out what your student's grade is? So there's a lot of neat things coming that we'll present to our parents and invite them into our open houses. We really don't want them into an open house just to walk around and see classes. We want them to come in and be trained and taught, and when they leave, but they leave with something in their hand to say, oh, this is what we're doing, this is how I can improve. Just some of the things that are going forth. Any other questions? Probably spoke too much.
No, you didn't.
But I did want our community to hear this little presentation tonight so they could hear, and the school board, so that you're aware and can answer questions
Absolutely.
without reading the whole book.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. President, I would move that we approve the 2017-18 high school student handbook as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the 17-18 high school handbook.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion, and a second. Any further discussion? I just want to say both to the junior high and the high school, I know that's a lot of work to put that together. I really appreciate their efforts and their focus on the end game of our kids providing an atmosphere where they can learn. I appreciate that. Have a motion, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. 2.5, approval of Arizona Youth Partnership to provide health education in Show Low Junior High school PE classes, choosing the best way, choosing the best path, and choosing the best life. Mr. Housley.
So as you could see from the title here, Arizona Youth Partnerships, they help with healthy choices, and they do those classes, and they've been a part of our school community already. And so we're asking that those classes be offered during as part of the junior high PE classes. I would recommend that we have the approval, your approval of the Arizona Youth Partnership to provide health education in Show Low junior high school PE classes.
Do it every year. I make a motion for the approval of Arizona Youth Partnership to provide health education in Show Low Junior High High School, Show Low Junior High High School PE classes.
I'll second.
Have a motion, and a second. Any further discussion?
Is this the one where parents can, they send home the permission slip and parents can opt out if they want?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to say, I think that anything, in the past, they've done similar things. And when you send home something with your kids, I think it opens up an opportunity to talk with your children about these issues. And I think that's really positive also. It was positive in my family. So I appreciate what they're doing here. And I also appreciate that there's the opt-out in case someone doesn't want to do that.
I do have one question, Mr. Housley, and that is, didn't we already approve this previously? So are we going to approve this every year? Or?
Yeah, it's something that we do every year, and we just want to make sure that our agreements to continue with the partnership is still there.
I thought once we approved some curriculum that it just moved forward unless we were changing it.
Well, this is an outside source that comes in and does it. They do have people that change and different things, so we just wanted to bring it to you to.
Okay.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. 2.6, approval for the Navajo County Health Department to provide Wise Guys and Smart Girls programs in Show Low Junior High PE classes.
This is something similar. It's another program. But a lot of times we look for these partnerships, especially as we had with our Safe Schools grant and trying to provide different outlets to help educate kids and to make good choices. And this is one of those also. I would recommend that we use the Wise Guys and Smart Girls program in conjunction with the Navajo County Health Department at the junior high.
I'll make a motion to approve offer the Wise Guys and Smart Girls program in conjunction with Navajo County Health Department at the junior high.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
I had a question. It looks like it's after school on Fridays. Is it actually during PE or is it something that people can come to? The community comes to? It just looks like those are, the dates are Fridays and they're after school for boys and girls. And so I wondered if this was actually in the PE classes. I was just confused.
With Dr. Dorset's not here, I would defer to her if she were, but I will follow up on that and get you that information.
Okay.
What I'm seeing is 12:45 PM to 2:45 each Friday, which is,
After school.
yeah, for our half days. So I would imagine that,
But she says that, you know, that they'd like to continue offering the program through junior high PE classes. So either way, I think it's a great program. I just wondered if it was just an after-school program.
I'm
or
not sure that the flyer indicates how we would use it necessarily.
It's just
More so this
information
is how-
about it.
This is more so how they offer it, how it works inside of our PE classes. That's what she's asking for, but I can get clarification on that other part for you.
so I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 2.7, approval of NEX US Coalition Drug Prevention Program at Sholo Junior High School. I guess that's Nexus,
Nexus.
right?
Yeah, Empowered is the program that we use. We've used it in the past. It's one of those programs that, like I said, through the Safe Schools program has been something that we've utilized in the past. It's been productive and helpful and useful to our district, and we want to continue to use that for the 17-18 school year. I would recommend that we continue to use that during this school year.
I make a motion to approve the Nexus Coalition Drug Prevention Program at Sholo Junior High School for the 17-18 school year.
I second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. 3.1, approval of teacher assistant position. Mr. Housley.
In your package, you'll find a memo from Mrs. Marsh. Currently, at our special ed preschool, we have a student that's coming in that requires a one-on-one situation, which would require that we have an aide to service that child, and that's what this is in reference to. So I would recommend that we approve a teacher assistance position as it was presented in Mrs. Marsh's memo. Note that this will be funded through the Special Education Basics Grant.
I'll make a motion for approval of the teacher assistant position.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 3.2, approval of resignations. Mr. Housley.
We have the following individuals who have submitted a letter of resignation: Cindy Garvin, Linden Teacher Assistant; Denise Compton, the Nicholas Homestead Teacher Assistant; and Thomas Muzzy, our Physical Facilities Director. All of the first two were effective June 30th, and Mr. Muzzy's was effective July 21st. I would recommend the approval of these resignations.
I move we approve these resignations.
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 3.3, approval of new hires. Mr. Housley.
We have several new hires to bring before you this evening. I want to note just a couple of things in here. The state legislature has opened up some opportunities on certification pathways. You'll notice it says intern certificate. Those are individuals who are moving. They have they're in their student teaching portion of their education, or they can qualify for a teaching intern, and they can teach while they're doing their student teaching and then be fully certified at the end of that intern. Also, that works for people who have bachelor's degrees that are getting into a program that will help them progress to certification. We have some that have qualified for that and are moving forward at this time of year, and the reason why it says subject to having that is because working with ADE, We had one fortunately went down and went to get the certificate, and they said, normally we wouldn't hand this to you over the counter, but since you drove all the way from Shola, we'll give it to you, and they got it, but that's not their normal practice. So at this time of year, that is a lengthy process, and sometimes there's long turnaround times. So that's why it says pending, because the process is in place. We're just waiting for the return of that to come back. So you'll notice that in some of them. Brandy Block, a junior high science teacher. Heidi Shipatello, Whipple Ranch Kindergarten. Renee Higginbotham, a high school special ed teacher. Angela Merrifield, Whipple Ranch Kindergarten teacher. Nadine Orth, high school teacher assistant. Joanne Barbara, a high school teacher assistant. Gail Tyler, Nicholas Homestead, teacher assistant. Also Jody Gilmore as a teacher assistant at Nicholas Homestead. Kim Brosman, also as a teacher assistant at Nicholas Homestead. Renadell Tosi, the teacher assistant at Whipple Ranch. Erica Perez, Linden, teacher assistant. And Lurchant or Lou Key, a bus driver. And I would recommend those new hires as presented.
I make a motion that we recommend approval of the new hires as presented.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Just what happens if the intern certificate doesn't come by the August 3rd?
Then there's a couple other options. They could potentially qualify for an emergency substitute certificate, which gives them a little bit more time to get it. And they would work under that until that happened. And in most cases, that's what we would want to do. And otherwise, we would have to put a substitute anyways in that situation until it was resolved. So that's how we would do that.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 3.4, approval of certified and classified substitutes. Mr. Hauser.
There is quite a few of them. Anyone can see those if they would wish, but I would recommend the approval of the following certified and classified substitutes as outlined in your board packet. Also in there, you'll see classified health tech subs, teacher assistant subs, library assistant subs, secretary subs, food service subs, physical facility, transportation subs, as well as sub bus drivers, bus aides, and trip drivers. I would recommend all of those as outlined.
Make a motion to approve all certified and classified substitutes as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 3.5, approval of stipends and volunteers. Mr. Hauser.
Mr. President, this is one of those agenda items that I'm going to defer to again, that there are far too many to read off. But please, if anyone would like to see them, they're more than welcome to. But I would request that you approve the following stipends and volunteers as outlined on item 3.5. It's approximately 3 pages long. So I would present those for your approval.
I motion for approval of stipends and volunteers as listed.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, I just would like you to clarify that we're moving to a 7-period day, so some of these are 1/7 stipend. If you could talk about that for just a second.
Certainly, in a typical stipend environment, a teacher might be asked to add an additional section that they teach during the day. In a 6-period day, that would be 1/6 of their day, and so we would stipend that teacher to pay in their prep period for 1/6 of the amount of their salary. This year, we transitioned at the end of the year to a 7-period day, and so the decision had to be made: do we take all of our those stipends that we still have? Do we take those and move them all to 1/7, or do we grandfather in and with the intent to move in that direction later on? And so those positions that were 1/6, and they had those 1/6 last year, we continued in a grandfathered situation for next year. So you'll see some 1/6 stipends on there. Those that were vacated or new stipends new people to those stipend areas. They became a 1/7 in accordance to our 1/7 day or 7-period day, where a teacher would then teach in their prep period and teach all 7 periods.
When you say grandfathered in, that doesn't mean that that stipend is there forever. It just means that for this next year, this is what we're doing.
Right, and in
Right.
fact, in any stipend situation, it's based on need and resources. And so if there's a need for an additional section of English per se, then we would continue with that if the resources were there to continue to offer that and the need was there that we needed to fill.
But it's something you evaluate year to year.
Year to year, yes,
So grandfathered is just,
for this year.
okay.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 3.6, approval of student teacher, Mr. Housley.
We have a student teacher, her name is Sarah Watkins. We wish to have her serve as a student teacher. This would benefit her, it would also benefit us. And she's going to be in a great placement with Mrs. Hall and Nicholas Homestead. So I think it'll be a benefit for that student to learn from one of our best. So I would recommend the approval of Sarah Watkins as a student, to have her student teaching experience in Nicholas Homestead with Mrs. Hall.
I move that we approve her as a student teacher.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Is Sarah from Sholo? Just curious.
I can't remember right offhand where she's from.
Yes.
Yes, she is.
Is she a Sholo grad? Oh, Great to have that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 3.7, approval of contract revision. Mr. Housley.
There's a need to increase the Mrs. Walentine, the PE position at the junior high. We've been filling that position just in a unique manner, but now she's available to us on a full-time basis, and we would like to have her for a full-time basis. So we would invite your approval of Mrs. Walentine's contract as presented.
Make a motion for approval of Mr. Valentine's contract.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 4.1, approval of revisions to policy JJJ-RA, extracurricular activity eligibility. Mr. Housley.
I will give Mr. Adams some time if you want to talk a little bit about that, Mr. Adams. And if it pleases the board, I would also ask him to comment on 4.2.
4.2, okay. The eligibility that we're requesting is to have the verbiage change in our district policy from eligibility every 3 weeks to an eligibility every week. The verbiage change is just that much, 3 weeks to 1 week. That's what we're asking for. The reason why is we get a student on a 3-week eligibility, they get so far behind in it, to get that student caught back up, and we're working more on a weekly basis this week with the daily reteach in the mornings and the mandatory tutoring in the mornings. We want that to be on every Friday, our teachers update Power School grades, and on Monday at 9 o'clock, we run eligibility. One point for you to understand is, and for the community here, and this will be one of our open house trainings when we do, there's one on eligibility, the 22nd, I think, of August on eligibility. But there is no, I don't know what a right way to say this, there's no death penalty. Used to be, if you were ineligible Monday morning, you were ineligible for 24 hours. Couldn't do anything about it. And that's now gone. It's on a weekly basis, and if you get that made up by lunchtime, Monday afternoon, you're ready to go. And we feel that's fair to students. We're not here to punish. We don't want double jeopardy on our athletes. We want our students involved in extracurricular, but we want them eligible. And so stay eligible. We're going to check it every week. We're going to help you with our resources. You have the opportunity to make it up and get back on track. And so that's really the extent of it. Still a D and better, which is appropriate. We understand that. But we want to check it weekly instead of every 3 weeks. And that would change our board policy. from a 3-week verbiage to a 1-week verbiage. That's what we're asking.
I have a question. Will all teachers be having assignments every week that they'll be grading? You know, some classes, it seemed, maybe did a project and you had one and then you went maybe a week or more.
We are on the same verbiage as the junior high, whether it's 3 weeks assignments per week or whether it's 2, but there's we have in our staff
something.
handbook. I didn't put it in for the board approval. We've just kept it every year, but there's verbiage that we want 2 required assignments per week.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say that this is something that I strongly agree with, and I'll make a motion that we approve. It's something that I wanted it to be there when I was teaching, so I strongly agree with you, Mr. Adams, and I'll make a motion to approve this revision.
Can I just ask one more question? So is Monday the deadline then? If they don't have the grade up on that Monday, they're not eligible for that week?
No, there's no death. If they make it up,
That
they're
day.
ineligible Monday morning, but they can make that up immediately.
Day.
And sign a pink slip and get the pink slip. The same pink slip process still is in place where if I have a failing grade in English, I can go to my English teacher, or I've already went to them, found out what's missing, get that made up, have the pink slip to become re-eligible. The teacher signs, it's made up, the grade is now this. They take it to an administrator, we sign it, that's now given to the coach and the kid's ready to play.
Will the junior high have a similar policy, or are they
I'm
on
not
their
going to
own
speak
still?
for Megan on this.
I'm
not
just
familiar.
curious
I'm
if
not-
they were gonna
I'm
kind of,
not familiar. I know she has a weekly, I better not speak to that.
Okay.
Mr. Perkins, I better leave that alone.
I have a motion, so we need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments?
I like it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes. 4.2, approval of revisions to policy IKF graduation requirements. Mr. Housley.
It should be there in your board book, and you can look to it as I go through this. Going to the 7-period day gave us the opportunity to do several things for students' benefit and for the school's benefit. One is it gave our students 28 credits now in high school. And what that did for us is a student who is going on to college or going to play athletics in college, sometimes they would get in trouble with their schedule and couldn't put all their classes in, and so would have to give them an online class. Well, the clearinghouse or the college, those NCA clearinghouses that want to check grades sometimes aren't too favorable of online classes. So this is going to help students now not have that schedule conflict. We are not going to be offering schedule conflict opportunities through the Apex Learning in White Mountain Institute. Those students will be expected to, with their 4-year planning, to work close with their parents and their guidance counselor to put into that 28 credits what they need to graduate. The credit requirement is moving from 22, which is the state required graduation requirements. And if you look at that, White Mountain Institute will remain for White Mountain Institute students at 22. But a Shola High School student, we want to transition them to 24 credits. As we get 28, we get too far, that gives us 4 free credits. The student can do what they wish with those 4. If we get much lower than that, we find it hard to keep kids interested in school, especially their senior year. And we are in the business of paying our teachers here. We need kids enrolled full-time in school. And we want to move that credit up. Not only just for that, it also gives our students, we have some great opportunities in our CTE and our off-campus NAVIT and type of programs. I know Mr. Housley shares this, and myself, we're both on track with this. We want to see more of the dual enrollment opportunities available for students to take during their school day, those dual enrollment opportunities. The 24 credits out of 28 total is going to give our students more of an opportunity to stay on our campus, receive their education, receive even post-secondary education or post-high school education, and meet their goals that they want to achieve in their life to be college and career ready as they leave Shola High School. So our desire is to see for this year, a graduating senior this year in 2018 will have 22 credits. A graduating senior in 2019 will go to 23 credits. That additional credit will come in the elective category. So they would be picking up an elective, a CTE class. Just to make a point, in our A to F label from the state, one of the categories in that label is, do you have students completing classes outside of the CTE sequence that they've enrolled in? Meaning, I might be a CTE student, But the state is encouraging us to have that student also take a photography class or a graphics communication or a business class or early childhood. And we receive extra points as a school in our label, in our 8F label for a student doing that. So that credit, that 23 is going to help in that one. And then the students who graduate in, what is it, 18, 19, 20?
20.
Is that when it goes to 24? I don't have it in front of me. In 2020, those seniors that graduate that year will be expected to have 24 credits to graduate. And from then on, it'll be 24. Once again, the White Mountain Institute and the White Mountain Institute Online will remain at 22. Also, let me make a point here that a university-bound student still has the same 16 required expected credits, which really involve the required core credits for graduation plus 2 foreign languages
Foreign language.
and a fine arts in there. So this is going to help in that category also. Let me just point out too that if a student completes those 16, that also helps us in our A to F label. And we track that, and we're seeing which students complete those all 16 university entrance requirements. So a lot of tracking, a lot of neat things for us to help our kids become college and career ready for their lives. So that's the proposal we're making, is to go from 22, then to 23, then to 24 in 2020.
I have a question.
Okay.
You have the sophomores that were freshmen last year required to have that career focus class. And then down below it says this requirement is for all incoming freshmen to complete the career focus class. So if you had a freshman that filled out their 4-year plan and career focus was not in that,
Good
are they
question.
going to have to take that?
No, there's, thank you for asking. That's good, and it's good for the public to hear this. As with everything, the teachers need to have 5 days to be absent, but then talk with the principal. Well, this is a talk with the principal. We have a form in place. I don't want everybody just coming to me. They meet with their counselor. It's a conflict in their 4-year plan. There's a form in place. They complete the form. It states the reasons and the justifications. The parent signs it, the counselor signs it. They bring it to the administrator signs it, saying, okay, we can see that it fits with the 4-year plan. We'll waive that requirement.
Okay, and you
There's
said
a
that
process to it. It's not just done willy-nilly and by favoritism.
you said that the online classes were not going to be used. Is that going forward? So
That is going
kids
forward.
that took the classes this summer, those
Correct,
still
they're
count?
okay, yes.
Okay.
If it's in their 4-year plan currently, we're going to honor that. But we want to see less of that. It doesn't matter to me as the principal of Shoal High School if your child wants to take that online class. But I'm telling you what, we don't know what your child might want to do 5 years from now, and they have that class in there, and it could hurt them. So we're going to be on the side of caution in that matter.
Well, I do like that you have the freshmen doing that career focus, because it's great to have that focus and
Yes.
be thinking about what you need to do and then do your 4-year plan. And I think that's a great policy.
I just came from a meeting in Tucson where many principals were in that room, and it's common case in the state of Arizona today that electives in a high school are CTE. So when you think, in the past, we've always thought CTE as CTE. That's career readiness. That's true, and we don't want to take anything from that. But we also need to understand that those are our electives here at Shola High School. Other than band and choir and art, those CTE classes are our electives. We want kids to explore. We want okay, you like culinary, good, but we want you to explore out here on the other side. And we want you to start with that career focus class, which exposes them to all of those electives, and then they can start narrowing down their sophomore, junior, and senior years to which programs they want to be in and which electives they want to take for elective classes. Good questions. There is always a form. If the policy says thou shalt not, please meet with the principal. We are logical people. We love these kids. We want them to be successful. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Adams. With that, I would ask that you approve item 4.2, the approval of the revision of policy IKF graduation requirements as outlined.
I move that we approve the new graduation requirements as outlined.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 5.1, approval of district budget fiscal year 2017-18. Mr. Schubert.
Yes, sir. Well, it's that time of year where we're going to go ahead and tell you how we're going to spend all this money that the state's given us for next year. I have a slide presentation prepared, so if we could get that up on the screen. There we go. Maybe. All right, so what we're going to be doing this year with our budget is budgeting this year is going to be a little bit different than it has been in years past. We are moving away, well, the state has made us move away from using previous year data to estimating what our student population is going to look like on our 100th day. And that is how our funding for the year will happen. So what we need to do with that is we need to take our best guess at what the student population will be on January 21st. I believe that's going to be about our 100th day, right about there. There's pros and cons to doing this. If we estimate too high what that 100th day number is going to be, we are going to have to refund money to the state. If we estimate too low in what we think our student population is, we're just stuck with it. There is no going back and saying, well, hey, we had 400 extra ADM that we didn't know we were going to have. Well, it's really a too bad situation. So what we've done this year is we've actually taken our ADM, and we're in a pretty good spot because we're not a growing district, we're not a declining district, we're basically a stagnant district. Our ADM for over the last 5 years it's got some ebbs and flows in it, but it's really basically a flat line. But what we've done with our ADM is we've actually increased it by over 100 count. That way we know that we will not be short. So moving on from there, we're going to talk about a little bit about projected tax rates. Now the county is still in the process of sending out forms to districts to get that tax rate. For last year, our primary tax rate was a 4.1586. And we are projecting a slight increase to that to a 4.2377. Our secondary tax rate last year was a 0.4275, and we're projecting a 0.386. So what you're talking here as far as a total tax rate is a 4.5861 from last year to a 4.5446 this year. So let's talk about our big budget, our maintenance and operations budget. Our maintenance and operations budget for the 16-17 school year was $14,852,144. Our M&O budget for the 17-18 school year is $14,526,467. Now, yes, that is a decrease, but I would like to hold off on any panic attacks or anything else until just a few more minutes, because I'll explain to you why that number is decreased. When you break down our budget into the three main areas, our regular education budget last year was $11,935,000, and for this upcoming school year, it's $11,332,000. Our special education budget last year was $1.7 million. This year, and this is just a rounding up, it's going to be right around $1.9 million. Our transportation budget last year was $1.1 million, and this year it's just over $1 million. So when you take that money and you break it down into the main categories, 75% of our M&O budget is going to go to salaries and benefits. 13% will go to purchase services, and there's 12% that will go to supplies and utilities. There's a very slight, small amount that goes to other things, but those are the main three areas that our budget is going to be spent in. One of the things that you'll be doing tonight is you'll be approving or disapproving a teacher increase that was proposed by the governor's office. We will have 122 teachers that are eligible for this, with a total full-time equivalency of 121.4. That 1.06 increase will be based off a total salary of $6,057,748. Now, I want to go ahead and just talk real quick about that number. That is anything a teacher is paid. That is an educational salary. So if a teacher is being paid a stipend for teaching on their prep, that is subject to a 1.06. That 1.06 is also not just for the M&O budget. if any Title I teacher, that salary is also increased by 1.06. So any salary or anything that the teacher gets paid dealing at an education code, that will be subject to the 1.06 as well. But the governor's office, they are going to give us that money. That is not coming straight out of our M&O budget. That is in addition to our M&O budget. So that 1.06 increase comes to $64,212. The state is also going to give us $7,384 to cover the employer's share for the state retirement, and $4,912 for their federal tax expenses. Grand total, the state's going to give us an additional $76,508, which would go towards teacher salary increases. Classroom site fund, this is our Proposition 301 monies. You'll see that so just let me go ahead and explain Prop 301 real quick. Fund 11 is set aside solely for teacher compensation. Okay. Fund 12 is their performance pay that they receive at the end of the year. And Fund 13 is more of a catch-all fund. Fund 13 can be used for things like classroom size reduction. It can be used for, I'm drawing a blank because that's the big one. But there's multiple things that can be used for. Dropout prevention is another one. What Show Low Schools does is they actually take that entire lump sum from that Fund 13 and put that into teacher compensation. You will see on, I guess it's not on the screen. Our Fund 11 from last year was $206,992. That's increasing this year to $325,000. Our Fund 12, again, which is the performance pay, is increasing from $413,000 to $568,000. And our Fund 13, which is that other portion that we solely put into teacher compensation, is increasing from $413,000 up to $552,000. So back to the panic mode as to why did our M&O budget go down. Over the past decade, the state has consistently reduced our capital budgets. There's currently a lawsuit that's going forth to actually try and get some of that money back to schools. The district receives just over $200,000 a year just for capital, which is an 85% decrease from what we should be getting. So last year, we went ahead and we supplemented our capital budget with right around $600,000 worth of M&O money. That money that gave us right around $800,000. We were out of capital funds by the beginning of May. And when I have a bus engine go down shortly thereafter, it's kind of hard to get, buses repaired, with engines, transmissions, and things like that when the funding's already been spent. So what we did this year is we actually increased the amount that we are supplementing our capital dollars out of. So this year we will have I'll take the exact number, give me 2 seconds. We will have $773,942 total in our capital budget. So what we've done is we've increased the amount that we are supplementing just because we have to be able to maintain our buildings and our equipment. So that is why that M&O number was lower than it was last year. And as always, it's that time of year that nobody's thinking about it, but I'm always thinking about it. It's tax credits. Just as a reminder to everybody that you can donate your tax credit money at any time during the year. A married family can make a credit of up to $400, a single up to $200. Some changes in that program was that any donations made between January 1st and tax day, April 15th, you have a choice to use it in that year or in the previous year. So we do have those, those options that are available to you. And the great thing about it is you don't have to do it all at once. If you wanted to do $50 now and $100 sometime down the road, it is something that you can do. And if it is something you'd like to do, please see Kelly. And she doesn't get any TV time, but please see Kelly. that's the presentation I have for you on this year's upcoming budget. And at that time, I would like to ask for your approvals. I tried to get you TV time.
I'll make a motion for the approval of the district budget for 2017.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 5.2, approval of 1.06% teacher salary increase. Mr. Schubert.
So part of the governor's program was that this had to be voted on separately than the budget. So you had to have an approved budget, and then you have to approve the pay increase. So at this time, I would ask for your approvals of that 1.06% increase that the state will be providing the funding for.
I make a motion to approve the 1.06 teacher salary increase for all certified staff.
I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions?
Oh, I just want to go on record as saying that 1.06 is not much money. Like, it's an average of $600 a teacher. It's just really
No,
not much
not a whole lot of money.
I'm thankful that there's money. I'm thankful that it's not much money.
Mr. President, can I add just one little caveat so that everyone knows that the district gave a 1% increase with your approval of the contracts. This is in addition to that. It wasn't in replacement of that. It's in addition. So just want to make sure that everyone knew that we weren't getting rid of what we did and then replacing it with this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 5.3, approval of sole source procurement vendor list for fiscal year 2017-2018 pursuant to R 72-1053. Mr. Schubert.
Yes, so every year we present to the board a list of sole source procurement vendors. Since we do have some newer board members, I'd like to take just a quick moment to explain to you what a sole source procurement is. A sole source procurement is a vendor that is the only vendor that we can use for this. So I'll give you an example, APS. APS is the only vendor I can use for the electricity for the schools, and Navapache Electric is the only vendor I can use for this other one. So that is a sole source procurement. Our accounting software that we use, they are the only ones that produce it. I can't go out and get competitive bids for it. So that's what a sole source procurement would be. So tonight, with the list that you have presented in your books, I'd ask for your approvals.
I make a motion for approval of the sole source vendor list as presented.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 5.4, update on district school facilities board projects. Mr. Schubert.
So when we did the approvals to use the board president stamp to get our school facility board projects moving forward quicker, we did that with the caveat of saying we will keep you updated as to what projects we have gone ahead and signed off on. So I just wanted to go ahead and give you a quick update on those. So far in the last month, we are going to replace 2 heat pumps at Whipple Ranch Elementary. We're replacing 2 compressors on the heat pumps, and those are at $3,100 a piece. We are doing new gutters, downspouts, and some concrete repair at Nicholas Homestead. That's a $3,000. And we are having a heat exchanger replaced at Whipple Ranch Elementary, and that is just over almost $18,000. So just in these 3 projects with the school facilities board, and it's not a whole lot, but it is almost $24,000 that the district isn't paying, but the school facilities board is paying. So I just wanted to give you that update on what some of these projects that we have that are going forward are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other discussion on that? It's not an action item. Good time to ask any questions. Thank you. Approval of 2017-18 dual enrollment partnership with North and Pioneer College. Mr. Schubert.
Every year we sign an intergovernmental agreement with NPC. This is what allows us to pay our teachers. NPC pays us so that we can pay our teachers for teaching those dual enrollment classes that Mr. Adams was speaking about earlier. So what I'd ask for you today is just your approvals of that IGA.
Make a motion to approve the IGA between the district and NPC, Northern Pioneer Community College.
Second them.
I have a motion in 2 seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 6.0 consent agenda, Mr. Schubert.
So tonight for you on our consent agenda, we're looking for your approvals on the ratification of our expense and payroll vouchers, the ratification of our junior high and high school activity revenues and expenditures, approval of the governing board minutes for our regular meeting and executive session on June 8th, as well as the special meeting on June 22nd. We are also asking for your approvals of the following donations. Beth Niemeyer donated a Kimball La Petite grand piano valued at $2,900 to the auditorium at the junior high. Cynthia Jellison with the White Mountain Choral donated over 170 songs to be housed at that high school. Harold and Vicki Maxwell donated a Conex building valued at $4,000 to the high school football team. We would like your approvals on everything on tonight's consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? As always, I would like to express appreciation to those folks who donate to our schools. We're so grateful, so appreciative.
It's amazing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all very much for being here this evening.
This is like your only perk to being a board member. Is your EIA card. Oh, one of the only ones. Okay, so maybe.
Mr. House.
That looks like video to me. Hang on,
No,
that
the
doesn't
only.
look right. Sorry, I always press the wrong button. There we go.
How do you take care of those? Is it a struggle for me to
I-
carry two packets
I-
on this slippery, on this slippery
It makes
one
me
every
appreciate
time?
you that much more.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
John signed with my previous two.
You doing okay? You tired?
Yeah, I'm hungry too.
I know, my stomach was.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
I had a Wendy's salad for lunch and that's it.
The